Hello out there, and Happy New Year to everyone. Best wishes to all Nigerians. My name is Laolu Akande, and you are on to Inside Sources, the first edition in 2026. We are thankful to the Almighty God. And here's my take for today, entitled, What Happened to Anthony Joshua and a Last Word on Politics. The year 2025 is over and gone. Let us thank the Almighty God that we saw its backside. But on a sad note, in the very last Monday of the year, one news item that ruffled us all was the car accident involving Anthony Joshua, the world boxing star, his friends and associates on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. On that same day, that was last Monday, there was another road crash that made the news from Gombe. 7 journalists died. While Joshua escaped unhurt, tragically, 2 of his close friends and team members, Shino Gami and Lateef Ayodele, were killed in the accident. Condolences to the relatives of those who died in both road crashes, and we wish those who were injured a speedy recovery. We plead for God's mercies. But it was the crash that occurred on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway near Shagamu when Joshua's Lexus SUV struck a stationary truck. That was the one that gripped national attention. By the way, someone should pay a serious price for parking that truck there. That's a different issue. And those 2 accidents in the last week, that's the one in Lagos Expressway to Ibadan and in Gombe last year, they have shed light again on the deplorable state of Nigeria's emergency services, especially the non-availability of ambulances and expert emergency responders, especially on our highways and on our roads. And to our elites who think once they are able to take care of themselves and their family, that they can care less about good governance and public safety, this Joshua car crash experience ought to be an awakening. It's a wake-up call that no one person by themselves can truly be better than the collection of the community. It shows that we are actually poor if this is what successful so-called well-to-do gets in a road accident. Joshua is a global star, a sporting star, rich and successful. Did you see how he was handled in an emergency situation on Monday at the expressway? Where were the ambulances, the trained professional emergency personnel? What we saw were a coterie of people with cell phones filming away, sometimes inappropriate scenes from the accident. What we saw was how Joshua came out of the scene shaking and traumatized, sometimes being held by untrained bystanders, no stretcher, no instant triage services to immediately evaluate injuries, no skillfully trained personnel to stabilize Joshua and the other people who didn't die, no proper professional handler on the scene of the accident. What we saw were dead bodies of Joshua's associates, their corpses openly laying improperly, carelessly on the floor of the road, no body bags, no dignity. Have we lost our sense of human dignity? These scenes and sights are stark reminders of the country's systemic failures and our desensitized condition as human beings. Those sights hardly ever shock us anymore. Lord have mercy. Now, the FRSC arrived in 3 minutes, we are told, and we ought to say that is prompt. But FRSC is not an emergency relief provider in that situation. We needed an ambulance to have arrived in 3 minutes with the right personnel and equipment to do what was needful. The lack of emergency response was glaring. No ambulances were present at the scene. Instead, Joshua was made to sit upright in the front of a police van, which goes against basic safety protocols. This incident highlights our collective poverty as a people, as our state governors cannot provide basic services, emergency services to its citizens, not to even talk of celebrities. Indeed, our leaders promptly called Joshua on the phone to share their best wishes in the circumstances. But an effective emergency response treatment would have been better for the man. Who cares for the phone call, small talk, and chats? Public records indicate that Nigeria has less than one, as a matter of fact, 0.4 ambulances per 1,000 people, far below the WHO's recommendation of one ambulance per 50,000 people in low and mid-income countries. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, where the accident occurred, is notorious for its poor infrastructure and worrying accident rates. So the governors in the adjoining states can't pretend that they don't know that. And this was even a festive season. The Lagos Ambulance Service has an average response time of 17 minutes, ranging from 7 to 60 minutes at times, which is below global standard. But what about Ogun State, where the accident actually occurred? It is reported in May 2022 that Ogun State has upgraded ambulance services that is 24 hours. That is 24 hours response for road emergencies, with ambulance services available in 16 locations across the senatorial districts in the state. So how come not even one of those ambulances showed up on that accident scene before we saw Joshua being cramped inside a police van sitting up? What we saw with the type of treatment meted out to Joshua is how accident victims and survivors are being handled. Others are even worse. What they will get will even be worse to what Joshua got. It should spark an outrage and concern among all Nigerians of goodwill. And we must challenge our state governors. We have to start today that this is one area that we need them to implement desperate reforms before our sense of decency and simple humanity is further desensitized than it is already. The poverty of a nation is not just measured by its economic indicators, but also by its inability to provide basic services to its citizens, such as emergency services. Nigeria's emergency services are a reflection of our neglect of human life and dignity. It is time for our state governors to take concrete steps to address these issues and prioritize the welfare of the citizens. Now, last word on the politics that is shaping up. As we can see, 2026 will be a significant political year, very clearly. Just look at what happened as the years we are exchanging, 2025 to 2026. Number one, Peter Obi is now energizing opposition as he has joined the ADC. The question is, can the ADC produce him or another Southerner for president in 2027? And then from Kano, some very serious rumblings as we see Governor Abba Yusuf seeming set to move to APC, joining the APC bandwagon and leaving Kwakwanso behind. The question is, what really does Kwakwanso want? If he won't join APC to be with Tinubu, and he can't join ADC in the opposition because he wouldn't want to be seen with Atiku, so what does Kwakwanso want? And finally, Rivers State political drama. We see that a lot is going to happen in this new year. It was Fubara's song late last year that hinted us that the Wike Fubara compromise seems to be dead again or dying. Now, did you hear what Wike said? Wike said that in Rivers State, there is no APC or PDP, but all we have is renewed hope family. What does that remind you of? It reminds me of Fubara's song, if you follow Tinubu, don't do corner. Fubara, they tell you something. Oh, there's a lot more that we're going to see in this year. Happy New Year. And there you have it. Inside Sources will get full blast right after this. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Once again, Happy New Year to all Nigerians. To open Inside Sources this year, and of course, to open the conversation today on the future of Nigeria, I have an eminent Nigerian, an economist, a chartered accountant who was former Commissioner for Finance in Ogun State and also Minister for Finance of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'd like to welcome for the first time to Inside Sources, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun.
Thanks.
My sister, it's good to see you in Inside Sources.
Thank you so much for that. That was a very generous run-up.
Oh, well,
Yeah, thank you.
We still have quite a few things to say. Of course, you're also the founder of DashMe Foundation. I hope in our conversation we'll get to that.
Right.
But I want to ask, like I normally open with my guests, that if you look at where the country is today, do you think that we are on course to that great Nigeria that many of us believe is the destiny of our country?
Yeah. I mean, my blood is green, white, green. Okay. So I'm always positive about Nigeria. And I'm positive about Nigeria for two reasons. One is obviously it's our country. We don't have anywhere else. And even those of us that do still know we don't have anywhere else, right? And I feel, and I've always felt that there's just something about Nigeria that is still untapped and has the capacity to really, really do well. So yes, I'm positive. I think the economy, they say in policy, economies go through three stages. There's shock, there's adjustment, and then there's growth. We've done shock. We're coming to the end of adjustment, and we should begin now to start seeing the growth. So yeah, I'm positive, very positive.
All right, so there are two important things that I also try to talk about when I try to assess the future of the country. Poverty and corruption. But I wanted to ask you about poverty. You've been Minister of Finance, Commissioner of Finance, so you've been in charge of resources quite a bit. What are the things that you have experienced? How do you see how we deal with the problem of poverty as a nation? Because, if you agree, it would seem that's a major problem in our existence.
Yes. And, so poverty is a relative concept, right? So every country will have a metric of people that they classify as impoverished, being in poverty. So it's not a Nigerian construct, right? Yeah. And interestingly, one of the things that was very interesting to me was the World Bank. When I used to go to World Bank meetings, the country that records the highest number of people in poverty, guess?
Well,
China.
China.
Meanwhile, we talk about the boom of China.
Right.
We forget that there's an underbelly of China that is in extreme poverty in the rural areas.
They go into a billion plus people.
Yeah, right. And we're at 230 million north of thereof. And so there's going to be this core of poverty that unfortunately will remain. What's important is, are people able to transit from poverty into sort of middle class or lower middle class? Are the mechanisms there for the demography to move from poverty? The worst kind of poverty is the poverty that is generational. Generation after generation, they remain poor.
And multi-dimensional poverty.
Yes. And no social mobility. Now, once your economy begins to grow, then you begin to give people the opportunity to dimension themselves out of poverty.
Right.
So for me, poverty has been pervasive. Unfortunately, in terms of numbers, because of the sheer numbers of Nigeria, no matter how much you do, there's always going to be this residual of poverty. But the question is there a direction of travel out of poverty? Are we able to see young people that came from a village who have a hope of some form of a middle-class life, maybe through education, which of course is the biggest or the fastest lever out of poverty, or by enterprise, or by providing some services that they can charge for? Are we seeing that? And if we're seeing that, then I think there's reason to be optimistic, because for every one person that comes out of poverty, they're supporting 3 or 4 more. They're sending money home. They're improving their parents. They're repairing roofs. So it's actually more about social mobility. Are people moving out of poverty? And I think maybe my view is not representative, but I see young people who are doing things with themselves, who are moving on, moving up.
I think it's always about the scale of that mobility. How do we really quicken things up, and how can we enlarge that potential and opportunities to the people? But I wanted to cross it over to the question of compassion in that kind of condition. We have probably about 100 million or more that are multidimensionally poor. What role do you think ought to Where is compassion by the people who, by the grace of God, seem to have, an upper hand? Do you think that there is enough demonstration of compassion among us as a people? I wanted to ask you that question because I was there at the launching of DashMe, by the way, a couple years back, and I could see what you're trying to do. I can see that it was coming from a place of compassion. But I wanted to hear from you directly, what do you think about these things?
So two things. So are we compassionate as a people? Absolutely. I find that we are compassionate. DashMe's growth, as you said correctly, we started in 2021 with one store. We're now on our 5th store, and we're expanding, at a very remarkable
All the stores in Lagos? Or?
No, so we have 1 in Abuja, we have 3 in Lagos, and we have 1 opening in Abeokuta, which will open next month. We're talking about Ibadan this year and Port Harcourt.
Let's put one in Ibadan. I come from Ibadan.
You come from Ibadan, okay. We're in very advanced talks about opening Ibadan.
Okay.
Port Harcourt. We're talking about Kano. Now, in each of those places where I physically or my team can't be, we rely on a partner to work with us. And we're seeing no shortage of people willing to get involved. They like what we're doing. They like helping. So I see compassion. But let me come back to the role of the well-to-do in the economy.
Good.
And this is a passion of mine. So a lot of things that we get very excited about in England is, they have council housing, there's NHS. If you go to the history of those institutions, they were started by individuals. The first council housing was actually started by an American banker who saw So
it didn't start as a council flat.
Government never starts anything. People start and government takes it over. So we talk about the Royal Free Hospital. This is one of my favorite examples. What happened was a doctor saw a child die because in those days, if you couldn't pay for a doctor, you didn't see a doctor.
Wow.
So he just said there should be somewhere that the poor can go. And that's where the Royal Free started. It started among the voluntary sector. It started among individuals. And it was after the Second World War that the government then said, no, we need to do this. They took it over.
Oh, wow.
Same with council housing. So everywhere you see the social fabric of a society, it's we the people. We lead government. And even in DashMe, we're seeing that because we go around, we want to refurbish orphanages. There was one particular orphanage, I won't mention the state, it was state-run.
Okay.
And so they said we have to write a letter to take permission to come in and refurbish the orphanage. So we wrote a letter and the governor said to me, no, it's okay.
Don't come.
We'll do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We'll do it. So it's the people that show government.
That's redeeming.
Yeah, because government's not a person, right?
Yeah.
I think it was just that you're going to come, you're going to maybe spend 20 million on my orphanage, then you're going to start snapping pictures and people are going to say, so what exactly? Yeah. So it's the people that lead government. And I think one of the challenges for us in Nigeria is that we expect government to lead the people. It's the other way around. If you think about things that governments respond to, is the things that irritate the people. That government then say, look, we have to do something about this.
Okay, so tell us quickly, since we started talking about DashMe, what has been the impact like, since 2021? You've done about 5 years, actually.
Yes, this is our 5th year. So, let me start from the numbers because I'm a numbers person. So cumulative, we've raised over 500 million.
Oh, wow.
From our stores and from partnerships with people who've supported us.
And that is how much has also gone out.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
The only people, I don't get paid. The only people that get paid are the shop staff, and that's it. Everything else goes out.
Oh, wow.
So we've built from scratch about 4 orphanages. In fact, the one that we're building was broken into just before Christmas. It was very painful.
Yeah, I saw the post on Instagram. Who would do that?
Stole all our
Who
wires.
does that?
It's like, come on, So I said to the contractor, put up a sign that it's an orphanage. Maybe if they had known it was an orphanage, they wouldn't have broken it. But people online have been saying, no, it's a lie. They would have broken those kinds of things. It was painful. It was painful and it was pointless. How much are you going to get? Pulled all the wires out.
Oh, wow.
All the wires and all the electrical fittings. How much are you going to get for that? Yeah. So that was painful. But yeah, we'll soldier on. We'll finish that orphanage. That project was started 42 years ago by a lady on her own. And they've been in rented accommodation for 42 years. So we said, look, okay, we'll finish this building for you. You need to be in your own home. Children's lives are unstable enough without landlords issuing quit notices. So yeah, we've done a huge amount. We've raised a lot of money.
The fact that you raised, that's $500 million naira.
cumulatively.
In 5 years.
Yeah, but not just, people bring things, they donate things.
Yeah.
We do the reach out in the UK. So Dash Day UK, where churches and the community in the UK donate. We fill a 40-foot container.
Right.
We bring it back to Nigeria. We sell it through our shops. We're hoping next year, because we're also registered in America as well as registered in the UK. So we're hoping to launch Dash Day USA sometime in 2026. Because my vision was I wanted a charity that was African, that worked to international standards, and that destroyed some of this narrative around Africans don't do anything for themselves. They're just waiting for us to come and rescue them. And it's just not true.
It's a very important work, that serious people should pay attention to. And it's good that, you got onto that. Clearly, it's a passion of yours. It's the only reason why, like you said, I don't imagine that you get paid, of course, for it. But it's good work. Now, I wanted to ask you about, the circumstances, of which you left government. I know quite a bit about it, but I think it's important if you would like to address, that situation. So, for instance, you resigned, after there was quite a bit of controversy whether you actually were exempted. Did you get a genuine exemption? And that debate was going on. And then you resigned. Many people assume that you resigned because, maybe you felt you didn't act correctly. I want you to address Nigerians on this issue now that you're here, your sister.
So, resignation for me is a matter of principle. And I didn't resign because I felt I had done anything wrong. I need to state that absolutely clearly. I resigned because I felt and still feel that the swirl of controversy around a minister of finance was such that if I continued, I was disrespecting the office, right? So let's go to the allegation.
Right.
What was the allegation? The allegation, which was printed online, was that I graduated at 22, I skipped NYSC, and therefore the exemption certificate that I had presented must have been forged. That was the allegation, right? And these people reached out to us and we said, no, you got it wrong. Yes, I graduated at 22, absolutely correct. But I graduated at 22 in England as a British citizen, living and working in England. At the time I graduated, I had been to Nigeria once. And that once I got a visa in my British passport. Why? Not because I didn't want to be a Nigerian, but because the Constitution of Nigeria forbade dual citizenship. So I couldn't have been a Nigerian. So I used to go to there was this office, I'm sure a lot of people will remember this office, on Fleet Street. You have to go there and everything Nigerians were asked to bring to get a UK visa, Nigeria was asking us to bring. So I would have to get a letter of invitation, bank statements of my sponsor, passport of my sponsor, to come into Nigeria, and then they would give me 4 weeks. So as at 22, I was living and working in the UK, and I'd been to Nigeria once. So where is the obligation to serve? I wasn't covered by Nigerian law. I wasn't a Nigerian citizen. Now, when the Constitution then changed, that was 99. I was 32. So my father left Nigeria for England in 64.
Oh, wow.
No, 62, sorry. My mum's 64. My dad's late. My mum's still living in the same borough, 64.
Oh, wow.
She's 87 now. So my family home is in England. All my siblings live in England. Okay. So by the time I now moved to Nigeria permanently, I was 35.
Of course, so you've gone past the age.
So in government, this was understood and being, everyone was like, yeah, don't mind them. So I thought that, okay, at some point, some bodies in government are going to have to come out and just say, look, nothing to see here. But there was this silence for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, what's the word, as they say, woke up and smelt the coffee that, whoa, hold on a minute, something's going on here. It shouldn't take 3 months to check immigration records and see that this person came in on visas.
Right.
It shouldn't take 3 months to check NYSC to say, yes, this person actually was exempt. These exemption certificates were processed on her behalf. She was 32 when she became a Nigerian, 35 when she came to live in the country. It shouldn't have taken that long.
Tell us, what did you feel about that silence? How did it make you feel?
So there were two things. There was and it's an interesting one because there wasn't a silence at sort of president level, vice president level. They understood. In fact, there was so much sympathy and so much love. Like, why are they doing this? But the silence was institutional. And at the same time, the furore was just being whipped up. The thing just refused to go, right? So I was then left with two choices. I knew that, look, the only way I'm going to clarify this is to go to court, right? And I felt you can't be Minister of Finance, representing your nation, going to the World Bank, signing treaties one day, and the next day you're in court on a matter of integrity.
And I agree with you entirely.
Okay.
But part of the problem that we now have is that you have people holding public offices and actually behaving that way, which is why people then said, why did Kemi do her own differently? Because people will say that, okay, well, I'm going to sit down there and fight this thing, still holding to public office. Like I said, I would do what you have done, but we have gotten to a point as a people where, and so there's a bit of confusion.
I can see why
she gave up. Why did she give up?
But what did you give up? So minister is not my middle name, right? It's not do or die. And I feel that you shouldn't desecrate the office. It's a very high office and it's a very sensitive office. You don't desecrate the office with your own personal matter. Insofar as government agencies, you say you heard a rumor. I'm not saying, I didn't listen to rumors. All I know is the fact that I knew I was exempt and my story has never changed. So when I decided that, look, I'm going, and by the way, I could have stayed, right? So I still have the email. I was scrolling through my inbox, the email of a statement that I was told I needed to issue. And then the presidency would now issue a statement and the matter would be closed. I read the statement and that day I knew, Kemi, you're gone. Because I knew I wasn't going to issue it. Because it wasn't true. So
somebody powerful was trying to get you to make some statement.
But I would have been owned. Look, let me tell you one thing about the Ministry of Finance, and I'm not naive about this.
Right.
Because remember, I was a Commissioner of Finance first.
Yeah.
The word no is a watchword.
Yeah. As in N-O.
N-O. No, sorry, we can't pay this.
Yeah.
No, sorry, this doesn't qualify.
And accountants are not very popular
we're
people.
We're never popular people, right? And so if your Minister of Finance is loved by everybody, they're probably not doing much of a job, right? So I'm not confused by the fact that I had stepped on toes, powerful toes. I'm not confused about that. And I'm not confused about the fact that I had powerful enemies who I believe saw an opportunity. Say, look, let's get rid of her. Yeah. Let's get rid of her. And I think they called it right in the sense that they knew that eventually she would go. And that's the way I was brought up. You don't hold on to something as if, no. In fact, people still like, no one resigns finance. Like, I did. And why did I resign? And I remember the day I resigned, I went to go and see Mr. President. And I said, Mr. President, I need to go. But I need to go to court because I have to clear my name. And he said, I absolutely support you. I absolutely support you. And why? Because these names are leased from our children and our grandchildren, right? They're going to inherit them. Yeah. And then you destroy your name because you wanted to stay as minister for what?
The president said that.
That was our discussion. So I said, sir, I'm going and I'm going to court. I cannot fight because I'm suing the government. I had to sue the government. I sued the federal government. You can't be suing the government and stay in the government. You can't.
Of course.
You have to go. Of course. Right? And I still think it was the right thing to do.
And when you sue the government, and this is a public matter, so were you suing NYSC or an agency of government? I wanted you to explain to our audience why you had to sue the government. So the only people that could have clarified this issue as to whether I was exempt or not by virtue of the Constitution was government. Yeah. And when you sue government, I didn't even know this because my lawyer was British, so he named all the insurance. They said, no, that's not how it works. You sue the chief law officer, who's the Attorney General. Right. The Attorney General then coordinates the various agencies to bring their own position. Right. And what was the basis of the lawsuit? The 79 Constitution made it very clear. This woman is not or was not at the material time a Nigerian. Yes, citizen. Yeah.
Yes or no? And the Constitution, of course, is the highest law.
Of course.
So once the Constitution says you're not a Nigerian, then you're not subject to Nigerian laws.
Absolutely.
So let me just give, and this not being a Nigerian there, it's so funny that it was so real to me. So the first time we came to Nigeria, I was 19. We came on a holiday. You know how students are, we didn't have much money. So we bought the cheapest ticket, which happened to be an airline called Sierra Leone Airlines, the national carrier of Sierra Leone. We didn't know they only had one plane. When we got to Freetown, I'm sure there's some people probably watching this saying, I was on that flight. When we got to Freetown, the plane developed a fault. We ended up spending 7 days in Freetown before they could repair the plane. Now, what happened? We were in a hotel. And after a while, Nigerians started agitating because it was getting to Christmas. There was somebody who was about to get married. There were people, stranded. So the Nigerian consulate came. And then they would ask each person, write down who you want us to contact to tell where you are.
Right.
When we went to join the queue, they said no. So we then went to go and get the British. There were about 37 of us that were British. They said, you're not Nigerians.
And what year was that?
1986.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 86. Yeah, Christmas 86.
So you had to, of course.
We went there, we went to get the
British passport.
Yeah, so we then went and found out there were 31 of us that had British passports. So the British now turned up. And it was the British that were then calling my mum in London, calling our mum and say, they're here, they're in Hotel Buntumani, room so-so-so, if you want to call them, and so on and so, organising and then asking us, did we need toothbrushes? Did we need this? It was the flight, we the stranded, we broke out on national lines. And, and I used to stand in the queue when I came to Nigeria, even when I was married to a Nigerian with 2 children, I was standing in the queue, other passport holders, you call it? Nigerian passport, other passport holders.
Exactly.
That was always my queue.
Foreign nationals.
Yeah, there you go. So I knew I wasn't a Nigerian. So how on earth would anybody assume that, oh, okay, you skipped? You can't skip what you're not meant to do.
Yeah.
And then once I knew, okay, I am exempt. So what was the motive to forge? Why would you forge what you're entitled to? It's like you're going to forge a Nigerian passport. Why? Right. You're entitled to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what the court ruled. The court said, I was exempt. I was entitled to an exemption certificate. So when this thing happened, one of the really, I guess, beautiful things about this thing, because in every negative, there has to be positive, right? Was people's reaction. People that I didn't know I did not know Chief Olanipeku. He just sent a message, I'm your lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And then Chief Femi Falana, I'm your lawyer. And I'm like, I should only have one lawyer.
Well, great goodwill.
It was amazing. There was a lot of love shown.
The truth of the matter is that, and it's important that that I say this, because I was also inside, is that it was the duty of the presidency, to make it clear what the truth was. That didn't happen. But let's move away from that topic. I'd like you to talk about what is happening currently. You were minister at a time when, things were very rough economically, even in terms of just getting public revenue. It seems we're back in that kind of a situation. And I wanted to get, what's your take about, some of these fiscal crises that we hear up and down. The minister says that we made 30% of the budget. The president says a different thing. Quite a bit of confusion. What's your take, about what should happen, basically? Or how do you want to, whichever way you want to respond?
So let me say this. Economics is not soccer. In soccer, you get a result in 90 minutes. Worst case, 120 minutes, right?
Exactly.
Economics, there's always a lag. A policy is implemented, and then there's a lag before you see the effect. So finance ministers are always judged in hindsight. People now say, oh, Kemi was, she was the, it's a lie. The same people called me Calamity Kemi. when the oil price dropped to 28 naira, they said Calamity Kemi. There was a front page, I've kept it, I framed it, sack Adeosun now, right? So I don't look at what people are saying. I look at what's the policy direction, policy trajectory. Let me take subsidy, right? There's no minister who did not see that subsidy was killing us. There was no minister. We tried different things. Do you remember Shorpy?
Yeah.
We tried different things. We tried, we knew that, look, Nigeria has 4 international borders, right? And then you're subsidizing your own fuel. You have 4 international borders. So your own fuel is maybe 40% lower than your 4 And they're land borders. It's not Britain that has a sea around it.
Right.
They're land borders, right?
Right.
So at some stage, we ended up with a consumption figure of about 65 million litres per day. We did the math.
And we knew that.
We had like 10 million cars. What's going on?
Yeah.
It's not possible. It's just not possible. Then we came up with, well, we can't remove subsidy because it's going to affect the people negatively. Let's put trackers on all the tank for away. I mean,
I remember that.
The incentive to smuggle. So we weren't just subsidising Nigeria. We were subsidising the whole
region.
West African region, which we can't afford to do. Now, that money you subsidise, that money you spend on subsidy is money you can't spend on roads. It's money you can't spend on education. It's money you can't spend on health. And there's nothing to show for it. So everybody knew that policy had to go. Now, the policy is gone. Of course, there are some overspills, right?
Yeah, there will be.
But in the long run, Nigerians are going to be so much better off from that. Because if you look at the revenues now that are going into FAC, they're significant. What the question now has to be asked is, how do you convert those revenues, those extra money, those savings, to help the people who are affected adversely? You know, we call them policy overspills. The overspills of those policies, you need to do something. I don't like the word palliative. You need to do something structural to help people to absorb these policy changes.
Yeah, well, so the federal government have been saying what seems to me to be factual, that, hey, just like you said, there's now more money going to the states, in fact. But some of the governments have said, oh, look, I mean, with inflation, you know, the valuation of Naira is not significant. You know, how do you respond to that?
No, I think, you know, it's not for me to respond. It's for the people to ask.
Okay.
Because, I mean, these figures are public. You can go onto the Ministry of Finance figure and you can look at where is FAC? Where was FAC? Where is FAC? Where's the difference?
Yeah.
Where are the policies? And it's the governors now to show to their people that, well, in my state, because every state is different and every state's needs are different.
Yeah, the thing is that the governors are pushing back and saying that it's not a big deal. Look at the devaluation of the Naira. Look at what has happened to inflation. 1 million can buy this. Now you have to be 2 million. Do you think that is reasonable? That's my point. You're an economist.
Yes, I think if you look at the numbers, and his numbers don't lie, just look at the numbers, follow the numbers. And then we have to ask, you know, governors now, they publish their budgets. People have to get involved. People have to look and ask intelligent questions, not emotional questions. Oh, the governors, they are just stealing. They may not be just stealing. They may have a huge bloated workforce. They may have projects that they have decided to prioritise. So I think each state is different, but people need to ask, you know, those questions locally.
True.
Yeah.
True. I mean, all policies are local after all. Yeah. Now, I wanted us to go back to, you know, when you were in government, you know, because I remember one of the policies that you came up with, which we, you know, I mean, I was a member of the presidential commission team. You know, we really sold that idea. Was this VATES, this voluntary asset
and income declaration.
You know, it didn't go very far. And it seems to me that may have been one of the things that, you know, some people didn't like about your work. But my question is, do you feel that there were some people in government who were not comfortable with what you were doing?
I don't know. But what I will say is this. If you do a job well, right, everything you do is affected. For every action, there's a reaction, right? So VATES was targeting the rich, was targeting people who didn't think they owed anything to Nigeria at all, right? And we had international private investigators on payroll who would go and tell us this person has a house here, this, there.
You were excited when you came up with the policy.
And we were having discussions.
Excited,
but I didn't finish.
Yeah, that's the point.
I resigned before it finished. So nobody really got to see where VATES was going. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm a former minister. But I'm happy that tax has been prioritised by this administration. I'm really, you know, I mean, the actors concerned are people that I know, but they're also people that know tax and know that the system was just not fit for purpose.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that right after this, but I want you to explain that VATES policy to Nigeria, what it intended to do and what it could have achieved. And then we now dovetail into talking about these taxes, because I want people to understand what it was.
No, it was an amnesty.
Summary.
It was an amnesty that basically recognised that people have not been paying their taxes. and it gave them a window. You just come and declare. There'll be no penalty. And we raised a bit of money. I've forgotten the figure. I mean, it's a long time now, but nowhere near what we could have raised.
Yeah.
Because we had started phase one. We had written to people to say, according to our records.
Yeah, you've identified some people.
Yeah.
That's why I have this theory now. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But I remember in one of your public speeches, or maybe we were trying to write a speech for the vice president and gave us the information. I want you to tell Nigerians about this as we dovetail to the tax reform. That you found out at the point that there were only maybe 14 Nigerians paying above 10 million.
Yeah,
Please
no,
tell us.
I've forgotten the figure. I think it was 247 above 20 million and 400 or so above 10 million.
In the whole of
the whole country.
At that time.
Yeah.
And this was probably 2017
that was 2018. Yeah, 2018. That was 2018.
Thereabout, yeah. I mean, because when we got that information,
so that was tax evasion on a massive
scale.
Yeah.
I mean, so that is why I supported these tax reforms, because hey, look, whatever it is that we say, we can talk about. Okay, let's build trust between the government, so that people will know that when this money come in, we use it in a transparent way, in an accountable way. Let's build accountability. I understand all of that. But to say that we won't be paying taxes, I think is part of the reason why we are where we are. There is no accountability because you don't have, your pocket is not involved in it.
100%.
So
100%.
Takes us to this tax reform laws. What's your take about it?
I mean, as I say, I've both as commissioner and as minister, it was clear that our tax laws were not harmonised. There were too many arms of government collecting. There was no cohesion. Businesses were complaining about multiple layers of taxation. So just the harmonisation, the bringing them together, makes amazing sense. And that's consistent with the global push, which is harmonise.
Right.
I was so excited the other day when I saw that they now said that your NIN is your TIN. Because I've always wondered how many numbers, for goodness sake, are we going to have?
Yeah.
We have TIN, we have NIN, we have BVN. And once you begin to harmonise, what's exciting for me is what they're doing around harmonisation, the data.
Yeah.
Because once they harmonise, the data...
And we tried to do that too.
Yes, we did. We had Project Lighthouse where we now began to see that even people that were doing contracts with government had not paid any taxes. Because once you have data, you can see.
Right.
And with AI, you can see quickly. So I am very confident that the tax take will increase. And the people evading, because the people that shout tend to be the lower ones, but they're actually being exempted.
Right.
What this tax reform is doing is going for the higher ones, going for the businesses, going for the people that are not playing the game fairly.
Yeah.
One of the things I was passionate about, again, just before I resigned, was, I was very pivotal in the OECD, the sharing of data, because we were having discussions with...
And OECD is the Organization of
Economic Cooperation and Development,
which is essentially an European...
Yeah, it's the big countries.
Right.
Again... and
But they can give beneficial information regarding Nigeria.
Share information.
Yeah.
And not only about Nigerians who have assets in those countries, but also about their companies who were not playing the game right here.
With the illicit...
with illicit financial
flows out of the country.
Yeah. So we're beginning to have real concrete discussions to say, no, you can't do this. You can't, I don't want to single out any company, but you can't develop a software, for example, that takes 20% of every taxi ride, right? You take 20% every time I
turn it into operations.
And then tell me that you're not a Nigerian company. You're not covered by our tax laws. You're actually based somewhere in one of those tax havens. No.
Yeah.
We were beginning to have those discussions that, okay, that might be the legal point, but that's not fair. There's got to be a sense of fairness. You can't just drop your software into my country and extract money from my people, because that's what it is, and do nothing. You weren't paying any taxes, you weren't compliant with anything. No, we're not. We were starting to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I understand that part of this reform is going to address part of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But what do you think about the current arguments? I support the tax reform, by the way. And I don't think the controversy should delay its implementation. But the controversy is quite a thing that, okay, look, the gazetted copy is different from what the president signed and all of that. and some people are saying, hey, let's stop the implementation. I don't think we should stop the implementation, but I think that we should fix that problem. What do you think?
Well, as somebody that has been victim of rumors without substantiation, I would say prove. He who alleges must prove, right? So if somebody is saying that's the truth, prove it now. I mean, everybody will see that truly, this is the case. Very often, I find sometimes it's a smoke screen. Sometimes, look, we don't want this thing implemented for other reasons. But I, as a professional, as an economist, as somebody who's very passionate about Nigeria, I think this is really important.
It is. And that's the reason that even though I say, okay, look, I mean, I don't think that is very diligent as possible, but I don't think we should. Certainly, we shouldn't postpone the implementation.
But I think the president said yesterday it's going ahead. 1st of January.
Yeah.
It's going ahead. And rightly so.
And I think the National Assembly too said that, oh, well, look, we're just going to take care of it. I wish there's more transparency, but I'll take it that, look, that reform is important. So there was this incident that happened, just before you left, while you were still minister, this knife point robbery. Do you want to tell us about that? What happened?
I can talk about it now, but I couldn't talk about it then.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, this was 2017. I can tell you the date and the time, 30th of January. In Maitama, my home was broken into, and all the people that were supposed to be protecting me, the police, they were asleep. The two guys got in, held us at knife point, robbed us.
Wow.
Laptops, jewelry, I mean, everything. We were the ones that went to go and wake the police. Police that were meant to be protected. That wake up, they're thieves. They had sawed through the burglary proof.
Wow.
And got into the house.
They probably brought some kind of engine.
No, they had equipment. And we had to take a decision. So it was a really difficult time for the country. So I don't know if you remember, there were two things happening. We were in the middle of a forex crisis, serious forex crisis.
Foreign exchange crisis.
Yes, foreign exchange crisis. And Mr. President had gone on medical leave. And I was about to lead the Eurobond Roadshow. Now, we needed to raise this money to restore Nigeria's credibility, to sell our reforms. So we had two choices. Do you want to go to the press and say your Minister of Finance was robbed at knife point? Or do you want to raise money?
Yeah.
So we took a decision that, look, we needed to keep, I mean, you heard this because you're
of course.
The inside rumor mill. But yes, it did happen. And it was extremely scary because, I never slept another night in that house.
Wow.
I ran. I lived in a flat. I wanted to have, I needed to have gated. So I lived in a flat for a few months. And now I always live in gated communities because it lives in your head.
Yeah.
To wake up with a knife to your throat saying, where's the money?
Kai.
Like, well.
Thank God you survived it.
Thank God.
But that brings us to the question of insecurity, and we've been on this problem for a long time. Honestly, I must say that one of the reasons why I joined the Buhari campaign was because I said, oh, that guy is a military man. He's going to sort out the problem. But the problems persist. So what will you say about how we ought to fix this insecurity problem? I know that you are an accountant, but because of your own personal experience.
No, I mean, I can only talk about, I was traumatized as an individual. And I'm sure everybody that has been victim of crime in some way is traumatized. And I don't think there's any lack of will on the part of government to solve, these problems. And I don't want to say, oh, insecurity is everywhere, insecurity is in every country, because I was also burgled in London. But the difference in London was that the burglars came when my children were young, they were at home, they carried away with our electronics and things, and they went. This one was, this one was close. But I mean, it's an issue that I think governments will do everything to try and get a grip to, because it's the one thing that, the citizens cannot do for themselves, right? There are things, you can run a gen if there's no power. You can do a borehole if there's no water, but you can't secure yourself.
Yeah, you need the government. Yeah. So let's hope that, we give the government all the support that is necessary. Final question, so what are you doing? I know that you have DashMe, but that's basically like a voluntary foundation, giving back. Yeah. What else are you doing? You're a chartered accountant, you know about economics, you're an economist and all that. What are you up to?
So when I resigned, in 2018, I really wanted to spend a lot of time with my children. My youngest child was actually 5 when I went into public office.
Oh, wow. That was when you became a commissioner.
Yes.
Which was 4 years before you became minister.
He was 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
So my priority then was him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted, I'm going back to talk about my resignation again, but I knew I was going to go to court, but then COVID happened.
And of course, the court ruled in your favor.
Oh, absolutely. Fully. And not only that. So in 2018, when I resigned, so I qualified as a chartered accountant in 93. So, of course, a report then went to my institute that your member, yes, has been accused of forgery. So they then wrote to me to say, right, we're investigating you. And they conducted a thorough investigation of the whole NYC matter.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, I'm going to have to appear at hearing. Never even got to hearing. They just wrote one day. We sent all the information. This is the story. This is where I was born, primary, secondary, tertiary. And every single year till I was 35, I had all my P60s that showed I was in England working. There was no gap.
P60 is what?
That's what they issue you every year, yes, to confirm your tax. So confirm that, at no point no point did I go to Nigeria where the obligation to serve might have accrued. So they looked at it and then wrote to say, we've closed our file. So that...
So you weren't indicted by them? Was this before you resigned or after you resigned?
No, it was after I resigned.
Okay.
So I knew, that was part of the reason why I knew I'm going to have to step back. You don't fight those kind of fights, in office. So so I knew I was going to have to go to court. And then, of course, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And that delayed things. And then Juson, I don't know if you remember, there was this Juson strike. The courts closed.
Judiciary.
Yeah.
Right.
So eventually, by the time the judgment came out in 2021, I think everybody had forgotten about it. But I never forgot.
Of course, it's your own matter.
Important to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I'd always said that, when I'm older and grey, I want to be able to tell my grandchildren.
You should.
When they ask the question.
To say, hey.
Yeah, did you?
These are the facts.
Never. And these are the facts. And this is what the court said. And it's based on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
This is it.
Absolutely.
So...
you're telling us about what you're going to be doing next.
Yeah. So then after that, I started DashMe, as you said, and started moving back. But this year, I began to really think carefully about what the other things I do. And one of the things I've been doing consistently is that I've been mentoring SMEs. Okay. I've always been a mentor to SMEs. And then I began to think about... the fact that in Nigeria, the failure rate of SMEs is really, really high. It's really high. I think it's north of 90%. Wow. Meanwhile, if you are employed in Nigeria, you are most likely to be employed by an SME. So I started to really think, I'm a problem solver. I'm a tinkerer. I like to just tinker with things. So I started thinking, okay, how does an SME learn the ropes in Nigeria? How do you learn? If you're in England, you can read all these biographies, Richard Branson, Bill, you can go to America. Yeah. There's nothing in Nigeria. People are not telling, Mr. Femi Otedola has written his own story and a few entrepreneurs have written, but most people have not said, how did you get there?
True.
How do you get there? Not telling our story. So I just started thinking, okay, I'd like to put together a platform that tells our stories and teaches small businesses how to keep your books, how to run a business properly. We call that startup boldness, Nigerian audacity, which we've coined to be Nidacity. So Nidacity. So I'm starting that in March.
Okay.
I'm going to be doing sort of podcasts.
Like a portal.
Yeah. Okay. With tools, free tools that people can use to know your numbers, business plans. Should I start a business? And then most importantly for me, I'm going to use my voice as form to get people to tell their stories. There are too many people that haven't told us their story.
Absolutely.
And we learn from stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's...
If we're able to reduce the failure rate of the SMEs to say even 70, 60%, that would be huge.
The job creation will be massive. Even 5%.
Yeah.
The job creation will be massive.
And you hope that this Nidacity might be helpful to do that.
We're a social enterprise. And it's not just me. So I've recruited other people who are passionate about it, good. That are high net worth or have done very well in business, who've got something to say. So I've got an advisory team that are helping to shape it and to make sure that, it's world class.
Excellent.
Yeah. Again, this is our African self-help, right? Not waiting for anybody to come and help us.
Absolutely.
Let's get on with it.
We've got all the resources. One last question that I'd like you to share. So you've been in public service, you're a private sector person. What lessons did you take out of your public service experience, that you think has shaped you or reflected your values? What is that core message that you developed because you went to public service?
Good question. I think I've always loved to serve, which is interesting, an interesting word. I've always loved to serve my community, because I feel that, when we're put on the earth with some form of privilege, we almost have a duty to do something, to give something back. So I think that for me has been a driving force. But I also feel that I've learned my limitations. I've learned the things that I won't do. No matter what's dangled in front of me, there's some things that I just won't do. So, you learn a lot about yourself when you go through this type
pressure
of...
points.
Yes. There's a book that I read recently where the character says, they have this saying, they say, what doesn't kill you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But this person says, what doesn't kill you doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
In other words, it's just life. You move on, you move on. I've moved on. It's been 7 years, but I feel like I've moved on, and I want to do new things. I want to keep writing the story.
Fantastic, and I will certainly be keeping up with your story. Because we serve together in government, I must say this publicly that I find you to be one of the more purposeful people who knew what they were doing.
Thank you.
And like I said, some of your policies was an excitement to those of us who had to do publicity work, communication work for the government, because
Thank you.
When you are serving as a spokesperson, you want something that you can talk to the people that excites them, something that offers some promise, and you gave us quite a bit of that. It's so sad that the powers that be had a different agenda. Don't worry, that's just my own small conspiracy theory. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your service. Thank you for your voice, and thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you, Laulu.
All right. Thank you so much. And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail. It means Nigeria will win. My name is Laulu Akonde. Thank you for watching. See you at the next edition. Happy New Year.